Well, the U.S. House of Cards is tumbling down. Shots fired, more states secede. Hello and welcome to Civil War in Hindsight. I'm Lieutenant Tommy, that's Prospector Johnny, and this week, Johnny, the crap hits the fan and just flings it all over.
Just everywhere.
So buckle up, there's not a
So,
single good thing that happens this week.
so I assume a lot of this stems from last week Georgia getting into the mess of it and starting to take over some stuff.
Yep, and we're going to start off this week with Alabama joining in with
Ah,
Georgia and seizing federal installations on January 4th when they take the U.S. Arsenal at Mount Vernon. So again, we have another state, hasn't seceded yet,
yeah, okay. I
taking
was
federal property.
that's what I was gonna say. They're not joining with South Carolina on paper or telling any, but
They're
they're
just
doing it. They're
they're
just
just
like, all
doing
right,
it.
we're gonna go ahead and take this too, just in case we want to secede later.
So I don't know if you're listening, President Buchanan, but maybe at least get all of our guns and munitions and supplies
Start,
out of these arsenals in the South
yeah,
before
start,
more of this happens.
yeah, maybe start bringing them up because this is not looking good.
No, it isn't looking good. On January 5th, the USS Star of the West is going to leave New York with supplies and 250 troops destined to Fort Sumter. It's going to replace the boat USS Brooklyn on the advice of General Scott. He suggested the change of boats. One's a little bit bigger and faster and more
Yeah.
capable. That's all it really is. It's still a merchant vessel, not armed, and that
Okay.
is important.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that because they had sent. I thought maybe it would be to intimidate them a little bit more, but that doesn't
No,
seem to be the
this is
case. It's
this
just
is this is
maneuverability.
just a little bit better boat to choose, but it's again, it is still not armed. There are no cannons on the gun. The only arms are the troops themselves and what they happen to be carrying, but obviously that's not good for naval engagements.
Right.
Senators from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, and Florida are going to hold caucuses in D.C. to encourage their states to secede and form a Southern Confederacy. So, why these men are let in Congress, I have no idea, but they're going to form a caucus to
That's
try to
treason.
encourage secession. Yes, how they're not arrested or why they're not arrested, no idea. Fort Washington is now going to be garrisoned to discourage any attack on the city of Washington, D.C. Probably a good move.
Yeah.
I'm,
I
I'm
think I think with every. I mean, they're showing. I mean, this is at least an aggressive verbal conversation, if nothing else, with
if
what they're
yeah
doing.
if nothing else, and Alabama's going to make another illegal move by seizing the forts of Morgan and Gaines, which are vital in the defense of Mobile, Alabama. So these are two forts that are in basically the entrance to Mobile Bay,
Okay.
kind of needed for defense of the city in case federal troops wanted to send some boats down their way.
Right. Which might
So
be a good
again,
idea.
I can't stress it enough. Alabama not seceded yet. Haven't even had a vote for it. Haven't even had the conversation. These are just
They're just taking
state
stuff.
troops taking stuff. Yeah, from the
Why is it
federal government.
how come they take it so easy?
Well, they're taking this stuff so easily right now, Johnny, because and I can't stress this enough either. The U.S. military is practically non-existent. We
Well,
don't have a
we're
very
lacking a little
we
bit,
don't have a very large standing army. We built a lot of these forts and arsenals in the event of invasion,
Yeah.
and since we're not facing any imminent invasion, we haven't called the troops up, we haven't garrisoned the troops, and everything has been pretty calm and content. So most of these installations are held by an ordnance sergeant and a caretaker or a janitor. So you've got basically two people, one of which is not military, to defend an entire fort.
So wait, they
So
get to camp out in a fort,
yeah,
basically.
they just get to camp out in a fort or an arsenal hanging
Sounds
out.
sounds pretty like a pretty
Not
good.
a
Yeah, I need to
yeah, not a bad
get
gig.
hooked up with that.
Yeah, not a bad gig. On January 6th, Florida would join in the fun by seizing the Appalachia arsenal, which is again another state that is not seceded, that is taking federal property, and
Right,
this time
South
again
Carolina is
another arsenal.
the only state that's seceded right now, right?
As of right now, yes.
I mean, officially, I mean, it sounds like the rest of them are just like, yeah,
Unofficially
we'll
doing
mail
what they're doing. Any
we'll mail the paperwork in later.
mayor of Chicago is going to hold one of multiple pro-union rallies in a lot of the states or a lot of the cities across the north, and even some cities in the south. His name is Fernando Wood. Fernando. It's a fun
Fernando.
name to say. Fernando. He's going to hold that pro-union meeting, and he would suggest that if the union is dissolved, that New York City should maintain itself as an independent, free city that trades with both the North and the South. So it sounds like we're caring more about economy than the nation as a whole or the stability of this nation, or maybe whether or not we have people in bondage against their will.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, of
way to
course,
go,
it's
Chicago.
always about the money, but like, I don't know. I feel like if the South secedes, good riddance.
Bye. Well,
Yeah, but I guess we kind of need clothes in the
which,
North.
well, that might be fine, except again, there's that whole they're taking federal property. I
Right.
think if they would
Also
have just
that
left and not taken
not
forts or not taken arsenals,
not been a little
a lot
aggressive.
of people probably would have been like, meh, bye.
Good luck. Like,
But that's not what's going on right now. On January 7th, Florida is going to continue its illegal actions by seizing Fort Marion and St. Augustine. And Mississippi, Alabama are going to hold their state conventions to discuss secession. And it seems that we're now only a matter of a few days away from several more states voting for secession. I find it highly dubious that Mississippi and Alabama, who've engaged in this whole illegal activities thing, are going to sit around and not secede.
not a chance. I mean, it's yeah, they're butting up. Now. Okay, in these secessions, do they state that they're seceding and creating the Confederacy or a
Yes, their
Confederacy or
ordinance.
whatever with South Carolina?
When they write an ordinance of secession, think of it like our Declaration of Independence. They are seceding and forming their own
Right.
country. It sounds like there's going to be a confederation of southern states. That these
Okay.
southern states that secede are going to join together and not just be independent amongst themselves. But we'll see. We'll see. Just hang with me there. Governor Letcher, John Letcher of Virginia, is actually going to hold a meeting and denounce secession and denounce South Carolina's moves, which is good. That's
Okay,
good for
yep,
yeah.
right.
But they say flat out that they will not support federal intervention into any state and will not allow any federal troops from crossing over from Virginia to any state for any reason whatsoever. So
But
they're basically shutting Virginia down, saying no federal troops are allowed in here.
don't worry about them
Especially if
taking
they're-
your forts.
Well, I think they're more worried about federal troops coming through Virginia to impose their will on another state or
Yeah.
potentially Virginia itself, which I guess is okay. I mean, they're taking a neutral stance, which okay, I can.
I mean, all right,
I mean,
fine, I guess, but
but they're not. He is, again, Governor John Letcher is denouncing secession and is denouncing South Carolina. John Crittenden, you might not remember him, but it was part of the Crittenden Compromise from a few weeks back. Well, he's going to speak and say essentially like, yeah, we're not. This compromise isn't going great. Nobody's seeming to be listening.
nobody's
He's-
budging it on their side.
Yeah, he's claiming that both sides are taking bad steps, which I understand the bad steps with South Carolina and Alabama and Florida for attacking federal installations.
yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what bad steps the North has done at this point. They've
Are they
not
considering
sent
the
federal
ship?
troops. I mean, outside of yesterday, they haven't even talked about sending troops anywhere. And right now, they're only sending troops to a fort to reinforce it when it's all the forts around them have already been seized. So
Right.
it
So
seems
you
like
think that's what they're talking about?
maybe that's what he's talking about. He does also state that he doesn't understand why his home state of Kentucky can't take its slaves into non-slave states, just like the non-slave states can choose not to have slaves if they want.
Well, that's
I
not
think
what
he's
that
missing-
means.
Yeah, I think he's missing the point here about states being able to do their thing and not imposing their will on other states. He's essentially saying that Kentucky should have the right to impose its will on other states by
Right.
allowing him to take his slaves into Ohio, for instance.
I mean, it sounds like he just wants to do whatever he wants to do and tell people what they ought to do.
Right? The House of Representatives today is going to vote that Major Anderson's movements of troops to Fort Sumter from Fort Moultrie was legal and approved and justified. So, House
There
of
you go.
Representatives, you've been saying what I've
Boom.
been saying for the last couple of weeks here.
Finally, some sense is being brought
At least in the
to
government,
this
yeah.
government.
Secretary of the Interior, Jacob Thompson of Mississippi, is going to be the last Southerner in Buchanan's cabinet to resign on January 8th. He says his resignation is over Buchanan's policies, including feeling that he was kept in the dark in regards to Fort Sumter and the troops being sent down there.
Wait, so you got to tell him about every little thing?
Well, and it was probably a good idea that they kept him in the dark because telegraphs have been intercepted to South Carolina that is warning South Carolina of the upcoming USS Star of the West ship coming to reinforce Fort Sumter.
So he's a dirty, rotten traitor.
And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that he is, in fact, one of those men that has been sending telegraphs to South Carolina. So good riddance in your resignation.
Tar and feather him.
Yeah, I don't know why. Again, I'm not sure why Buchanan hasn't arrested some of these people, but
no,
okay.
We're just fine with treason, I guess. It's just okay.
I guess it is just okay. President Buchanan would once again shirk his duties by writing a letter to Congress saying that the situation is out of the control of the executive branch at this point, and he demands Congress to come up with some way for the people to be able to vote whether they want to secede or not. So now he's saying, not only is it, all right, look, not my problem. Man, I can't. I'm just the president. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, from the beginning,
let the people vote.
That's what I've been saying. He's just passing the buck, trying to not make a decision. He's like, guys, I have 2 weeks. Please, I don't want to deal with this. Well, let me get out of here. That's all he wants to do. Useless.
Well, he's pretty much useless at this point. And Johnny, on the night of January 8th, we narrowly avoid war when federal troops in Florida fire on a group of 20 people that have approached Fort Barrancas, B-A-R-R-A-N-C-A-S. Barrancas. Your Spanish forts names are fun. The party would flee into the wilderness, uninjured, unharmed. No other return shots were fired.
So they just shot
essentially, what had
ground.
happened? Well, what had happened is you have a group of people to go seize that fort that they thought was only an ordnance sergeant and janitor, but it was a garrison fort. So the garrison fort did what it should do when people breached their zone of perimeter, and that's fire a couple of warning shots at the very least, which is what happens.
Well, that's good. So they avoid. Kudos to whoever fired those shots for not hitting somebody, because that would have sent
that probably would have triggered something. Yeah. But around midnight on January 8th, the USS Star of the West would arrive in Charleston Harbor. As they attempted to approach the fort, they were fired upon by rockets from a nearby steamer.
Rockets?
By the morning of from a nearby steamer. By the morning of January 9th, the USS Star had approached within 1 3/4 miles away from Fort Sumter when it was fired on by a concealed battery in Charleston Harbor. So an entire battery of guns opened up on the USS Star.
Just hidden.
All shots happened to miss, but it was enough to deter the captain of the USS Star of the West turn it around. He's an unarmed merchant vessel. He did not sign up for that.
Well, so and you got shot at once and you didn't get hit. You don't roll that dice again.
No.
It's bye.
Yeah, turn that.
I can't return fire, so I'm out of here.
And somehow war's not been declared. Buchanan's not issued any kind of military sanction over this. Major Anderson would raise the garrison flag. This guy right behind me. He'd raise that above Fort Sumter in opposition to South Carolina.
As a big old middle finger.
His men would be a little disgruntled at him that they didn't get the opportunity to fire back. Major Anderson's reasoning here as well, fire at what?
Right, yeah.
Well, they fired at us, but I don't know exactly where they are, and if we fire back and hit somebody like a kid,
you just want to start blasting fire into a hillside. That's not a it's not a good idea. Or onto a beach or whatever's around that area.
Papers in the North obviously would be outraged at this incident because South Carolina has now officially fired on federal troops.
Sounds like war to me.
To a unarmed merchant vessel,
which is even worse.
Yes, South Carolina would claim that they were justified in their act because it was carrying federal troops, so it wasn't unarmed.
So you're just attacking federal troops.
Which is, again,
also,
I'm not sure how that's...
How's that your justification?
Well, that's the justification. And by mid-afternoon, Mississippi would become the second state to secede from the Union. And we're going to talk later in the week when this actually happens on January 9th. So stay tuned for a special secession episode on January 9th where we'll go into more detail about Mississippi secession and other state secession because Johnny on January 10th,
Just
they're going to
domino
be
effect,
joined.
right?
They're going to be joined as well by Louisiana. So
So now we're gonna have 3 actually seceded, and then multiple others that are obviously on their way to
yeah.
with their actions.
Alabama's voting on it on January 11th. So
All right, so good.
So suspect
good
that January
riddance.
11th is going to be another secession. On January 10th, Major Anderson would be told by Washington to act strictly on the defense and to not engage in any hostile actions, but to defend his positions with force.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't fire first,
defend,
but
but
fire
don't
if fired
attack.
upon. Yes, if you're attacked, if you're fired upon, defend your position.
Yeah.
And North Carolina, Johnny, to end the whole week, they're going to join in the fun of illegal seizing of territory when they seize Fort Johnson and Fort Caswell. So
it's leaking from
it's just
South Carolina.
South
into
Carolina
North
is
Carolina.
just a cancerous tumor that's spreading every day that we let it go on. So maybe Buchanan, you might want to inject some chemotherapy into this before it gets worse. But
I mean, do something. What's chemotherapy?
they had chemotherapy,
Oh,
Johnny.
okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, anyways, but stay tuned next week to see what happens with this crap storm. But when's war happening? It's not a matter of if at this point.
No,
It's when is it
no.
going to happen?
Yeah.
Because now you have 3 states that have seceded. You've got shots fired.
No.
I guess my cozy desk job that I have is about ready to go out the window.
Yeah, the Union needs to grow a pair.
That's it for this week in Civil War in Hindsight. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and join us on our other channel of Historic Hindsight, where we talk about weekly random history things that happen that make us giggle.